Yo guys, and welcome back to another Spore creation video. And for today's creation, we're going to be making the Deathgripper from How to Train Your Dragon 3. The last one I made my previous Deathgripper was a couple of months before the movie ever came out. This was when all we had was the trailers to work with. And I referenced some very talented artists out there who made their own various fan arts on the Deathgripper. Of course, I wanted to make my creation too, jump on a hype bandwagon, as I always try to do with new games and movie releases. And I did mean that I had a rather inaccurate Deathgripper. And looking back on the creation, I think it was pretty decent for what it was, given that I made it before the movie was out. But now that the movie is out, it has kind of, let's just to put it politely, it's gotten a bit of flack, alright? There's a couple of angry people. And, you know, as I always tend to do, whenever I do try to make a creation very early compared to the actual, original concept, I do try to go back and fix them, as is what we are doing for today. Now, when it came to the Deathgripper here, I actually found that my biggest struggle in the end of this creation was trying to get the right posture, since, like, guys, do me a favour, if you want to check out the Deathgripper for yourself, go look it up on Google Images, and you'll find that their postures in the images are very, very strange, whereas in the movie themselves, like in the actual movie, it's kind of hard to get like a good overall look of their bodies when they're not in, some extravagant position or pose. If you just want to get like a standard standing body, like a T-pose, if you will, it's kind of hard to get that in the movie, but the actual images on Google are just so odd. A lot of them look really, I don't know how to place it or how to word it, just very odd. So it did make making the posture here a bit of a struggle, a bit of a challenge, because I wanted it to look interesting. I wanted to look, grand and exciting to look at. Obviously, I want that to be the case in all my creations. But I kind of wasn't sure if I got that here. Like, towards the end, it feels a bit, what's the word, closed up. I don't know. I'd like to hear what you guys have to say about that, what your opinions are. But yes, when it came to like the actual Deathgripper itself, so currently in the creation here, I've made the pincers. That was the big thing that I left out last time. That was the core flaw that a lot of us, a lot of various artists all made when we're trying to figure out how the Deathgripper looked, and that was the fact that, unlike every other How to Train Your Dragon creature, they didn't have, the typical back legs, or was it back claws, foreclaws? No, they had the back claws, but they also had these giant pincer things, which are really interesting. It'd make for quite an interesting design for the creation. But again, as far as proportions go, it really messed with me, because when I look at the pincers on this creature, I don't know, I felt like they should be a lot larger. But then in all of the concept art and in the various images I could find on Google, the pincers looked really small, and I really, again, it was a very hard time trying to decide between my own personal bias and, therefore, making it look cool as a creation, and then, comparing that to, like, the actual literal, like example, because one thing that I've mentioned quite a few times in the past creations is it's all well and good making exact duplicates and exact recreations of existing characters in Spore. It's all well and good doing that, but sometimes they just don't look right, and you do need to add like a bit of your own artistic touch into it, or your own artistic flair, to make the creature pop more. And that is something I have had to try and do with this one. It's been a bit of a challenge, because again, I don't want to deviate too far away from the original design, but at the same time, I do want to have, just something exciting to look at. My biggest issue, no, not issue, my second biggest hurdle with this creation, as well as the posture, was also the spikes on its back. I feel like I'm in a bit of a rut right now when it comes to creating. For the first time in a long time, I feel very unsure of how to make dragons, which is kind of weird considering that's my staple creation is dragons. And for the first time, I feel like I'm very lost on how to do certain features. I think I may have just made too many. So when it came to doing the back spikes, the really, really large plated bits of armor that decorate the Deathgripper's back, I really had a bit of a hard time trying to get, again, the right form, the right texture, all these different factors in. And as you can see here, I ended up combining 3 different parts, all stacked up in a particular way to try and, get a near enough version of what the Deathgripper actually has. And I think towards the end, it does do a pretty decent job, again, considering Spore's limits. I think that's quite decently. But it's something I'm a little bit conscious about. It's something that I think probably could have been better, maybe when I'm a bit more inspired, and I could try again. After all, look at the Bewilderbeast and the Cloud Jumper. Those two creations I made before, I think I made about 3 attempts at each, and of course, toothless. So I wouldn't be surprised if I do go back, in the future, if I go back and make this on a 3rd time as well. After all, there's nothing wrong in my opinion. There's nothing wrong at all of making the same thing again and again if there is actual, real progress. I'm more than happy to do that. At this point on in the creation, I pretty much finished like every major feature other than the head. I'm currently trying to figure out how to do that really interesting design it has on the barb of its tail. The barb of its tail is, straightforward enough, but it's got like this little weird flare thing. Kind of reminds me of a flower, and that was something I kind of struggled with. The face, you know what, looking back on it, I struggled with a lot of things in this creation. It was the posture, the back spikes, and now the face. The face was really, actually, looking back on it, was definitely my hardest part, because a lot of How to Train Your Dragon creatures do have these very welcoming looking expressions. Like even the Monstrous Nightmare, even that one, in certain angles or in certain settings can look quite welcoming. Looks like, it could be your friend, theoretically. And the same goes for the Deathgripper. Even though it's a very big, evil, dragon-eating dragon, it still, again, has a bit of a cute look, especially when you look in the Google images. They have like almost a bit of a smile or a bit of a smirk. That was something I was really trying to do with this creature here. But as I mentioned earlier with Spore, as much as you may try to make a perfect replica or a perfect recreation, sometimes things just don't really pan out very well. In this scenario here, it was a case of having that open mouth, the open mouth expression with the giant tusks pointing out, and therefore all the teeth being revealed, as well as having a much larger lower jaw. Now that's a thing that, one, I can't do animated, so unfortunately I did have to make a custom static mouth for this, which I know a lot of people aren't really a fan of. But if I wanted to have that open expression, it was required. And mainly too, with all these different features in mind, all the different properties, it did mean that it had a very freakish looking grin. It wasn't even a grin, come to think of it. It was like a anglerfish, where its mouth was just trapped open, or stuck open more like. It was teeth showing or like that. It just looked really creepy. And I did try a fair amount. I did keep on trying to kind of make it look a little bit more welcoming, to have it have that ever so slight subtle curve in its mouth that kind of makes it look like it's smiling. I also tried to play around the eyes a little bit as well, make it look like its cheeks are kind of like raising up, that way its eyes look a bit happier. I tried doing all these little subtle small differences with the mouth and the head in general. Couldn't really get it to work in the end, which is quite unfortunate. So like I said, it will have a rather freakish, angryish looking expression, which again, looking back, is actually the same issue I had with Cloud Jumper and Bewilderbeast. It's probably why I keep on remaking them two specimens, is again because of their mouths are really unique. That's probably one of the biggest things with How to Train Your Dragon I struggle with the most, and that is their faces. Because, at the end of the day, they're not meant to be made in Spore. They are obviously very characterized and very, very, exaggerated, very cute looking cartoonish things, which, is either very hit or very miss in Spore. For How to Train Your Dragon creations, they are very miss in Spore. I do try my best, I definitely do try. But some things do just kind of not really work out. And you will see later on that for the rest of the creation with this Deathgripper, in the end, I do like how it came out. I do like it. I did have to add on a couple of extra parts here and there, particularly around the forearms, because the forearms looked very, very scrawny. Had to point the wings a little bit further up as well, have that angled them in a bit more of a menacing kind of pose. Like right now, they look folded in. Later on, I fold the wings upwards. That way, again, they kind of look like they're expanded. All these things in mind, all these, little artistic things I kind of add in. I think it looked really good, but the face is probably the one thing I regret on. Well, not quite regret, it's a bit of a strong word to use. But the face was just generally a really hard part, is what I'm trying to get at here. It was a good challenge, but it just didn't have that quite the same expressions I really wanted. So then, here we have the Deathgripper at last. Now, like I said, as I pointed out there, I did add quite a bit of flair to the forearms, and I really think it makes it pop out. I think for a Spore creation, it looks significantly better for it. I also bent the back legs a bit further back because, like I said, it looked very hunched over, a bit scrawny, so again, trying to give it a bit more of a broader appearance. The tail, I'm very torn with, because the tail does feel quite small. in proportion to the rest of the body, considering it is, you know, a big stinger tail, and yet when compared to the concept art and the references, it was about right, size-wise. This time around though, what I'm happy about the most is the fact that this is more accurate than the previous one. And this is one I really hope that people will see. When they see my previous Deathgripper, I really hope that I've redirected to this one, which is obviously more up-to-date, you know, I was about to say more effort put in, no, more like references put in. As, you know, again, as a reminder for people who, you know, are just like skipping to this part here, my previous Deathgripper was made before the movie was even out. I had no reference images, only creative ideas. Whereas this time around, this one is based on references and therefore the movie. Hopefully it's a lot better. And of course, guys, as always, hopefully you like it. Right then, thank you very much for watching. Hope you learned something, and I'll catch you all next time. Cheers.